Okay, we're going to do a brief overview of our window and door section. Now, the things we can estimate and do a takeoff for in this section are our windows and doors, both interior and exterior doors, our header framing, which our header framing is going to be, the headers for our framing, both interior and exterior openings, as well as our window flashing and insulation. So we can estimate for how are we going to flash the sill before we put the windows in? How are we going to tape the flange? If this is a flanged window, how are we going to tape the flanges? And what tape we're going to use to tape over the flanges, as well as our foam insulation that we're going to use around the doors once they're installed, as well as your caulk and sealant that you're going to put on the backside of your flanges before you install. Right? And so this is going to calculate how much we need based on the amount and size of windows that we have, right? So these numbers will all change, and it's calculated based on the size and windows that we select. So there's two sections here, our yellow section and our blue section. Our yellow section is going to be our input section. This is where we're going to input our information. And our blue section is going to be our readouts. This is going to tell us what material we need, how much of that material, and the cost of it. So in our yellow section, once again, just the only two colors that are important are light blue and white. Light blue means we can select our from a drop-down menu, whereas white is information we need to input manually. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to do is, if you know, basically there's two options here. Do you know what windows you're going to be putting in, or do you just know the size? If you know the windows that you're going to be putting in, you can select it from this drop-down list, right? Now, if you haven't added your windows to your material list, it's very simple. You just click this plus sign. It'll take you to our windows and doors material list. You can just add a new window here, whatever the window is. Make sure you put in the size. And here, let's just say it's $400 for that window, right? If we go back, you can see that this window has now been added to our new window, into our drop-down list, right? Now, if you don't know what window you're going to put in, but you only know the sides, you do not have to, that's why it says optional, you do not have to put this information in. It won't tell you how much the windows are going to cost, but it'll use this information to calculate what our header framing is going to be, how much flashing tape and caulk we're going to need to install it, as well as allowing us to get an accurate measurement of how much insulation we'll need, right? Because our windows and exterior doors are places we do not need insulation for. So down here in our wall section, when we estimate how much insulation, it's going to use these measurements to basically help estimate how much insulation, saying we don't need insulation wherever we have windows or doors. Okay, so if you know what windows you have, so you can either select from the list or add it to the list, right? So let's say we do know what windows we're going to use. Once we select the window, you can see that this section is going to be red. This means you don't have to input information in here. And the reason we don't have to input the information here, because we've already stored this information in the system. So BuildLogic will use this information here to tell the program what size windows we're going to have, right? But if we don't if we don't know what windows we're going to use and we just know the size, we can just put it in here, right? Now, you'll see there's going to be an alert that's going to pop up whenever you're missing information, right? So it's really important that these windows are not our 8 windows, right? These are 8 different types of windows, right? So each type of window, each size, will get its own entry, right? But you're going to many times you're going to have windows of the same size. So you only have to select that size once, right? So the number of windows we're going to have, you just type in here. You can see the alert goes away. Now the next thing we need to input is our framing header dimension. Now our framing header dimension is going to be what is the dimension of our framing headers, right? So a lot of time they're going to be 2x6 or 2x8, but sometimes they'll even be, they're big spans that use LVL, right? Now the last alert we have is enter number of members, right? The number of members is going to be how many of these LVLs or 2x6s or 2x8s are we going to be fastening together to make the header, right? So for example, here this would be 2 members in our header, right? This would just be 1 member in our header. So all we have to do is select how many members in our header, i.e. like how many boards are we going to be fastening together to make the width, and you can see it's going to start calculating our header framing. All right, so this is going to calculate and give you the lumber that's going to be optimized for the least amount of waste, right? Because if you chose 16 feet, this was a 16-foot board, you would have more waste than a 12-foot board. Now, if you want to select the length right here, you can just kind of click that right there, and it will kind of automatically change any board that's in here to 16 feet, 12 feet, or 10 feet. Our door section is going to be the same. Once again, if we select our doors, it's going to red out areas that we don't need to input. We have to put in the number of doors we're going to have, what our header framing is going to be, and how many members in that header framing. And you can see it's going to start populating our header framing. It's going to populate the number of doors and how much that's going to cost, as well as how much tape we're going to need, how much insulation, and how much caulk we're going to need. Now, the only difference between the door section and the window section is this exterior door. Pretty much all windows are exterior. Occasionally, once in a while, I guess there's going to be an interior window, but doors, we need to basically delineate whether or not a door is interior or exterior. Now, whenever you choose, once again, if you want to add a door, right, you're going to click here, and you're either going to add it to your exterior entry door section or your interior door section, right? So if you select from this drop-down list, it's going to know whether or not it's exterior or interior door, and you won't have to check that box. But if you don't know what doors you're going to use, you only know the size, you're going to have to just make sure, let it know, hey, is this an exterior door or interior door? Because if it's an exterior door, it's going to calculate information here and also help us get a more accurate estimation for our insulation.